All right, this is Chapter 7, the Mass Media and Crime Prevention. All right, the level of reported crime. So let's talk about that. So crime stories comprise roughly 5% and 30% of newspaper space. So the crime stories that the media is relating that the media is talking about. Crime represents 10% of the news stories and 13 to 18% of the broadcast time. 20 to 40% of primetime programs focus on law enforcement and the criminal justice system. That's huge. And media accounts and actual crime, correspondence between the media portrayal of crime and the actual extent of the type of criminal activity show a great deal of divergence. It's not the same. You can look at the media. I get so frustrated sometimes, all these celebrities that act in these shows and they get paid so much money, and then I wish sometimes they would have a consultant on there from law enforcement, because what they do is not correct, or what they show. I'll give you a couple examples. One, if you look in the right upper corner, you can see her finger that's in the trigger. An officer's finger is never in the trigger unless they are going to stop the threat. And you see it so often. People are searching houses, or they're playing a cop or FBI agent, and they've got the finger in the trigger, and that's just not. I mean, that's like common sense for officers and how they're trained. Second is taser. See, all the time somebody gets tased, they go unconscious. That's not true. I've been tased. You do not go unconscious. I've seen people tased. They do not go unconscious. You can watch lots of videos on it, unless there's some prior medical history, drug use, and generally if there is drug use or mental illness, the taser doesn't even affect them, let alone make them go out. But anyway, this is more talking about what the crime is portrayed in the media with what happens. And you got to remember, the media is trying to get people to read the story, open the social media page, buy the newspaper, and so they are going to glorify certain things so that people will pick up the newspaper, buy it, open social media, and see the marketing that goes on. And if they can prove that they get so many visits to their website each day, each hour, then people are going to want to spend money to market whatever they're trying to sell. And so you have to remember that with crime. It's not always what it ends up being reported. All right, so here's some more on media distorts the crime picture, and does the media cause crime and fear? And media presentations may increase people's fear because they're saying things are happening when in retrospect, once they get truly investigated by the police, that there may not have even been a crime. There might have been the sound of gunshots when it was the backfire of a car, for example. And so people get very scared, think that people have guns and firing them or shooting them in a neighborhood, and it might not even be a gun, just depending on what the media reports at the time. All right, here was a study done using publicity for preventative purposes. So really, this is in your textbook, and you need to make sure that you read through this. Also, do a YouTube search on McGruff Take a Bite Out of Crime. There's some great videos. I had a video also linked in Moodle, I think it was last week or the week before, where there was talking about what the McGruff Take a Bite Out of Crime is. With my police department, we actually had crime prevention specialists that had that were certified and went to places like our power company and trained the electricians that they were McGruff supporters, and then they went into the schools and did training for McGruff. And if a child was in distress or needed help, not only could they contact police, but they could notify this worker, and the worker with the power company or whatever government site it was, the children could notify them, and they would know what to do. They were the adult that knew what to do. So it's pretty cool. You can take a look at it. There's been a number of campaigns done, and also a number of objectives. So this talks about a 1980s National Crime Prevention Council that manages McGruff, and the 4 basic objectives are to alter the public's feelings about crime and the criminal justice system, generate feelings of citizen responsibility for crime and crime prevention, 3, enhance citizen cooperation with the criminal justice system, and 4, enhance existing crime prevention efforts. All right. Also, they do a lot of PSAs. I haven't seen one in a while, but that doesn't mean they don't occur. They do a lot of McGruff the dog and PSAs. I kind of remember, this is your brain on drugs, and they would show a frying egg, or different kinds of things. So anyhow, they're always have different themes. They're putting it out there to really reduce crime. There's been a lot of evaluations done. One was, it's been a while, it's been over 40 years. They found that 50% of the respondents saw the campaign announcements. Only 3% were able to recall what it was about. 90% were able to describe suggestions made. More than 50% felt more responsible. So that's pretty actually good when you look at a campaign. They also did a panel survey and found some things. So you can pause here and look through this. And there was also a second evaluation that was done, and they did find a number of things, but mainly that they needed to find ways to reach the vulnerable groups in society that didn't have a TV or things like that. Now, this was a while ago, so we didn't have social media. So definitely things have changed since this was done. There's been other campaigns done. For example, Buzzed Driving is Drunk Driving, or the National Youth Anti-Drug Media Campaign. There was inconsistent and weak results in some of these program evaluations that suggest that the programs may need to be better targeted. There's also crime newsletters that need to definitely be tailored towards the community and targeted to a more limited audience. Generally, we want to get this out. It's a lot of work to get them done, so they're more mass targeted when we have found they need to be more tailor fitted to the community. There's also informational lines such as Crime Stoppers. There's now a suicide prevention line. At this time, there was almost 1,200 programs around the world in 24 countries, so pretty cool. We've all heard about them. You see TV shows where they offer rewards if they solve a crime, anonymity, all kinds of great things. All right, you can go Google Crime Stoppers. There's some YouTube videos so you can look at the current public service announcements that's out there, and also some old ones, and get a chuckle with what used to be done for PSAs. All right, Crime Stopper, fact and figures. This kind of looks at United States and nationally. That's pretty huge as far as how many cases they've cleared, arrests they've made, award money that they've paid, property, drug seized, total money recovered. Pretty big. All right. There's also, like we talked about, information lines. Police departments are getting better with that. A lot of cities have what we call 311, which are non-emergency lines. You can actually now, for 911, a lot of departments, you can text, because they realize that a lot of people text and aren't used to calling on phones anymore. So it's really evolving. Crime Time Television focused primarily on unsolved crimes. We just talked about America Most Wanted, Unsolved Mystery, Top Cops, Crime Watch, all those kinds of things, and what viewers thought about them and what their response was. All right, publicity and prevention on a smaller scale, and targeted publicity about prevention programs and initiative can have an impact on the success of crime prevention efforts. For example, publicity may reduce crime in and of itself. It may have an anticipatory benefit. And several studies reveal evidence of an anticipatory benefit stemming from the publicity. So it is helping. There's a study in 1997 that said the media must assume some blame for the continued failure of policies to deal with crime. Media fails to critically assess claims regarding the efficacy of crime control policies. So a lot of things this found about the media, kind of very interesting. All right, this ends this chapter. We'll see you for the